Ladies and gentlemen, what is going on, everybody? My name is Blitzwanger, and welcome to a movie review for Captain Marvel. So Captain Marvel has just been released this past weekend, and I finally was able to see it on Sunday night. I do apologize that the review is a little bit late, but nevertheless, let's get to discussing the film. I do want to preface this with the fact that I will try to remain as spoiler-free as I possibly can, but sometimes I might imply something in terms of maybe some character appearance or something like that, but I'm not going to spoil anything specific, and I'll try to do my best. If I do want to spoil something, I will give you a spoiler alert before spoiling it, so you should be kind of safe in that sense, even if you haven't seen the movie yet. Now, as far as any details for the movie, I don't want to talk about any specific scenes or anything like that, so I'm going to try to remain as spoiler-free as I can, but the one thing I will say is that I will still discuss elements like, for example, if you don't want to be spoiled on the fact that, spoiler alert, this movie has 90s music and even those kinds of details you consider to be spoilers, or sorry, 70s music, I guess, really. So if you consider that to be a spoiler for you, then obviously you have been warned. So keep that in mind. So with that in mind, let's get into it. So first and foremost, and by the way, it is 90s music, not 70s. I don't know why I said 70s. But the point is, for me, this is a middle of the pack film. Right off the bat, right up front, I would say that this lies... there are 21 total MCU movies at this point. This would lie probably at around 12th place, maybe 13th, 14th, somewhere there, kind of in the middle of the pack. It wouldn't be at the very bottom, but nor would I consider this movie a top 10 movie. I've only seen it once. I do want to watch it again because I feel like this is going to be one of those movies that when I watch it once again, I will be able to either enjoy it far more or far less. I really think that there's certain things that I want to rewatch and be like, okay, did I remember that and see it the way that I thought, or was it some different interpretation that maybe something clouded my judgment? So overall, I thought that the best parts about this film, personally, were music. I like the setting. It was really cool to go back and have that element explored because we haven't really seen this time frame in the MCU, so I think that was definitely quite cool. I think they did an amazing job with all the CGI for the movie in terms of doing the whole de-aging, I think it's called, technology on Nick Fury and Coulson, things like that is really, really cool. I'm very, very surprised that it looks as good as it does. It's amazing that they actually look way younger. It's crazy. I don't know how they do it, what the process is, but whatever they're doing, keep doing that because that is absolutely amazing. We saw it first, I think, with Ego as well, right? Kurt Russell in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. We saw him being de-aged, and that was really crazy as well. But nevertheless, I really enjoyed that. I thought that the villain was actually pretty good. I enjoyed the overall way that they set up the villain, how the trailers set up certain things versus what played out in the movie. I thought that was really, really cool, and I'm remaining vague on purpose with that one. So I really enjoyed that quite a bit. But to me personally, I did not think that this movie fit very well in this particular phase. It's, what's weird is that as I was thinking about it, because I watched this movie with the game and we talked about it afterwards and so on and so forth, but I thought about it and this movie feels like it would have been really good if it was in maybe phase 2, or maybe phase 1. I don't think, well, no, phase 1 would have been too early. I just don't think that they would have probably taken the risk with Captain Marvel at that point. But I think at phase 2, or maybe the end of phase 1, right when Guardians came out, I think if this movie came out then, I really think we would have looked at it a lot more favorably. It's just that where it comes out now, we have kind of a different interpretation or expectation, I guess, to an extent from characters. And that's why I think movies like even Ant-Man or Doctor Strange, for me, those movies are also not in the top 10 because I just don't think those movies have that enough kind of momentum and story building for the entire MCU. And maybe that's kind of the negative side of having such a connected universe, is that the standalone stories really need to be special in order for us to resonate with them and feel like they are worthy of their own standalone story without getting other characters involved. And I think that one of the more recent movies that maybe did that decently was maybe Spider-Man Far From Home. I mean, Spider-Man Homecoming. But to be fair, Tony Stark was in that as well. So even in that movie, they had to bring in Tony to like kind of create that feeling of an MCU movie. So it's weird how that works. And I'm sure that there's an element of bias there just in that sense, right? That it's like, well, why can't it be a standalone story? And you did have Nick Fury there, so why wasn't he kind of like the linchpin? But it's just weird that it just did not feel like a movie that needed to take place before Endgame and after Infinity War. And yes, you could make the argument that, hey, well, in the timeline, it doesn't take place in that time. And that's true. I just think that there was this weird feeling of where it did not feel like what happened there was like that influential to the MCU storyline. You know, it felt like, oh, this is a good background story to introduce a character like Captain Marvel, whom if you don't know her, then this is a good story for you to watch. But for me, having read countless comic books featuring her, I know a lot about the character, so I kind of was seeking like a new adventure for her, or something that wasn't so heavily an origin story. And it really was almost like, you know, the complaint that a lot of people have with Spider-Man oftentimes, where they retell the story of like, oh, he's going to get bit again and blah, 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 blah. And people got tired of that. So that's kind of like a similar experience where it's like, I felt like it would have been cool if they kind of got through the origin a little bit quicker and then have her more in like a space adventure or something like that. Because everything that takes place in space in this movie is insanely awesome. It is really cool action scenes, really well told story. But then a lot of the stuff that takes place on Earth is more like you know, it kind of doesn't, it feels like it kind of treads the same exact gear and doesn't like shift up to like, okay, well, the stakes are raised or something like that, you know? So that's definitely a bit of a complaint from me. Now, outside of that, I don't know if, again, I want to watch the movie again because I don't want to jump to conclusions, but there were a few scenes where I wasn't a big fan of some of the interpretation in terms of acting. I thought that the acting was all right in this movie, not excellent. I did think that, I don't know who played the main Skrull, whoever that was, like under makeup or whatever, or maybe was he the same guy without makeup? Maybe, I don't know. But whomever that actor was, he did really well. He was like, I don't know what he was doing, but he was like, to me, he was the standout character of the movie, surprisingly so, Talos. So I really, really liked that character. He was really, really cool. And like did excellent acting in the film. Did excellent acting. That's good English. But I really enjoyed that interpretation and that take on the character and that entire world. I also think that the movie did do some really cool like gap filling. I'm not sure if they were necessarily questions that we needed to have answered. Like some of the questions that maybe we had kind of hanging out there loose in the MCU universe that maybe people wanted to have answered. I'm sure you'll come off happy with this movie because there's a few big questions that people might have. I don't know if they're significant questions, like in terms of like, do they push the story far, or what is their significance in the time frame of being the 21st movie released in the MCU universe, I guess. But outside of that, I just felt like there wasn't much else that I could like get behind on this movie as far as like, oh, I'm super duper attached to this moment or that scene or this or that or the other. So overall, I understand that many people, this movie has been very controversial, obviously, across the board with many different audiences and such. And a lot of people feel like, oh, it's ways one way or another. And again, I try to stay away from politics and any type of serious discussions on my channel as much as I possibly can, just because it's not that I don't have opinions on things. It's just that I don't think this is the place nor the time. So I'm not going to weigh in on that end and give you guys an opinion of like, oh, well, do I think that this is like a pro-feminism movie or anything like that, or anti, and all these different things that people have been going way too far with, considering it's supposed to be just a comic book movie that we can grab a bucket of popcorn and go enjoy. But to me, I'm not going to talk about all of that. I'm talking about from just a fundamental perspective, like as a movie. Do I think that this is better than something like Thor: The Dark World? Absolutely. Do I think it's something better than Winter Soldier? No. I think Winter Soldier is a far better movie. So is Iron Man. So is Infinity War. So is like, there's several. I like when me and Gamer were going out of this movie, I started listing and I was like, yeah, this movie wouldn't make my top 10 because there's Avengers Infinity War, Civil War, Winter Soldier, Iron Man 3. There's lots of movies that I have personally enjoyed more as a film, not just like who are the characters and the protagonists, but just as a movie. Fundamentally, like the editing, the story, the music, all of the cohesive pieces that need to be there for a movie to be great. To me, this movie was the middle of the pack. So if I had to give it a rating, because I know everybody needs to have a rating nowadays for everything, I'd give it a 7.5 out of 10. That's where it would sit for me personally, which again, exactly where if we took a list of 21 movies, this would be at about 7.5, making it around, you know, the 11th, 12th, 13th, kind of that place on that list. So it's not the best of the best movies from the MCU, but it's definitely not the bottom tier films either. There's far more movies, in my opinion, in the MCU that are more boring or non-significant. Like Thor: The Dark World had a very similar issue of where a lot of the stuff that happened in the movie is like, okay, well, how does that affect anything? You know, and it was kind of just there. It didn't change that gear either. It was like kind of stuck in the same type of mode for a lot of it. So there you go. That's my opinion on Captain Marvel. I know some of you guys are going to disagree. That's perfectly fine. I know some of you guys are going to agree. That's also perfectly fine. I'm very curious to hear your opinions and thoughts. Please don't spoil the movie down in the comment section below, because of course the movie has only been out for a handful of days, so not everybody has had the chance to see it. So let me know what you guys think without spoiling it. Like, hey, I think it's a good movie, bad movie, so on and so forth. But please try to avoid any specific details, whether it be specific character details or obviously specific moments from the film that might be important, including there is a very cool, like I said before, very cool difference between what you think you're going to get with this movie when you're going into it versus what you get. And I think that that was really well done, just even from a marketing perspective, how they got us to think of certain things and certain characters. And then when you go into the movie, you're like, oh, wow, that's cool. That's a interesting maneuver. I don't even want to use the other word because I feel like that might be giving away too much. So thank you guys so very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the review. I'll hopefully catch you guys here on the next one. Peace out. See you later, alligators. Bye-bye, guys.